Hello, my name is Damon Friedman, co-founder and president of SOF Missions. As a 20-year veteran within special operations, I've gone through many challenges due to my military service and time in combat. We felt called to start SOF Missions to serve our fellow brothers and sisters in arms, focusing on suicide prevention and resiliency. Our mission at SOF Missions is to empower warriors to find purpose and be resilient. Since 2011, when we started the organization, almost 3 million men and women have deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. Unfortunately, the scars of war take a toll on their psychological, physical, social, and spiritual health. Many veterans feel a sense of hopelessness and a loss of purpose when they return to civilian life. They feel isolated and alone, unable to reconnect. And in the greatest of tragedies, over 20 veterans lose all hope and take their own lives. Our goal at SOF Missions is to provide veterans the tools and resources so that they don't become a statistic. We offer a unique approach to combating veteran suicide through a whole health, intradisciplinary model. The Be Resilient program is a 4-pillar methodology that addresses the areas of psychological, physical, social, and spiritual wellness. We provide care through 3 delivery methods: medical clinics, retreats, and educational training. Since we started back in 2011, we have been able to reach veterans in all 50 states and have served over 3,000 veterans through the Be Resilient program. Being resilient is a multifaceted and complex issue. We know that to find a lasting solution, we have to address the whole warrior. Many challenges cannot be solved by providing the treatments and modalities of just one component, but by tackling them all. Now, we've expanded our services to include law enforcement and first responders. Together, we can make a lasting impact in the lives of warriors across the nation. To learn more, visit our website at sofmissions.org.
All right. Welcome back.
Misfit Nation, the Misfit Nation show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience need to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, Stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation show. It's your Sunday after dinner show. I know you can be elsewhere right now. The NFL is on. WNBA playoffs are on. You have your weekend. You could be anywhere, but you chose to fly with us. Thanks for hanging out with us and spending some of that time and gaining those frequent flyer miles. Tonight, before we start, our streak is over. We do have our memorial to announce tonight. Deputy Sheriff Andres Andy Lahera, Citrus County Sheriff's Office, Florida. End of watch Thursday, September 11th, 2025. Let's keep Sheriff Lahara's family, his friends, the community in your thoughts, your prayers as they go through this sudden change of life and they try to heal from what just happened there. Tonight, we have a great guest coming all the way from Panama. So we're staying international again here. That's I think our fourth one in the last month or so, and we're hitting different countries. So this is awesome. Misfit Nation is setting a foothold across the world. So this is a pretty cool thing. We're thrilled to welcome a visionary in holistic healing, guided by the powerful belief that you are your own best medicine. With over 25 years of experience, she empowers her clients, especially women, on a transformative journey of self-discovery and renewal, helping them reclaim their soul truths and tap into the transcendent power of consciousness. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Marissa Heisel to the Misfit Nation show. Welcome, Dr. Marissa.
Hey, Rich. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here tonight.
It's great to have you here, and of course to have you coming from Panama. So that gives us another little pin on that map of things that people see us from. So it's awesome to have you here. I just gave basically the elevator speech introduction of you there. If you don't mind, go back as far as you want and tell the Misfit Nation a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. Well, I mean, I trained as a conventional chiropractor, graduated in '99, actually, and immediately sort of went off on a different path, recognized that health is about so much more than what I was taught in school, and really became a mind, body, spirit practitioner. Moved from Toronto, which is a huge city, to rural Ontario when I was still in Canada, and really became a bit more of a holistic family doc. But I also trained as a midwife, and so most of my focus was really on women and children's health. And I started noticing some really interesting things. From about 2010 on, I started to see this incredibly escalating incidence of anxiety, depression, ADD, ADHD, all of it in kids, right around the same time that smartphones were really starting to take hold. And I really started to hear, once I was out of the city and into a rural area, I really started to hear how women were being addressed and spoken to by their medical doctors and in the medical community. And so much of my work over the next, I've been in practice 26 years, really became focusing on holistic health, yes, for women and children, but it also became this real focus on helping women to return to their personal sovereignty by untangling from these cultural scripts that taught them they were powerless. The truth is that our bodies and our intuition already know so much about us, and the work isn't about one more protocol that we need to follow. It's about guiding women and men out of a state of systemic dependency and into a state of radical self-trust and inner authority, back to trusting ourselves, to seeing our emotions as intelligence, to seeing symptoms as signals that our body is sending us, as opposed to this hyper-medicalized, hyper-pathologized state that healthcare is now in. So that's kind of the long and short of it.
And I think you hit a lot of things on the head there that veterans go through on a daily basis, especially with the way medicine is thrown at us. And a lot of our audience, as you know, are veterans, both male and female. And if you go to, say, the Veterans Affairs, Veterans Administration, and you go to the doctor there, when I first went there, they didn't even look at me. They just looked at the computer and said, well, I'm prescribing you these 16 things. Mm-hmm. And they work for me, so they should work for you. No, I'm not taking them. But they sent them to me anyway, and I just brought them right to the police station and dumped them off because I had no idea what they were. I wasn't going to take them. And I still don't take anything they give me because unless they touch me and show what it's going to do for me, it's not going to help me. But I do go to the chiropractor all the time. I do acupuncture now. So I've made that curve and learned the holistic treatments instead of just going straight, hey, doc, give me some drugs. I'm going to keep going forward. And I think that's a great thing that you're doing.
Thank you. I think we're really in a state of dependency on a system right now that says from the moment that we're born, you need to be given medication or injected with something because for some reason our bodies are apparently deficient and incapable of healing, which is a truly incredible proposition. You know, I mean, in the US, babies are injected with a Hep B vaccine the day of birth. And we're not going to talk about vaccination unless you want to go there. That the bigger issue is this consideration that we're somehow already born deficient. That's incredible to me. And most people, when they're handed those 16 different prescriptions, they are told outright, you're going to need to be on this for the rest of your life. There's no consideration of lifestyle. There's no consideration of nutrition. There's no consideration of spirit or consciousness or anything else. It's just, this is what you're going to need. So it's this constant pathologizing of everything. You know, you've just lost your spouse. You're going to need to be on antidepressants for the rest of your life. It's called grief. Like, for the love of God. So it's, you know, it's those kinds of things. And it's only gotten that much more pronounced. Unfortunately, it's not just veterans where your doctor has their back to you and is typing on a computer. That happens in labor, with women in labor, where you've got a nurse or a doctor not touching this woman unless she's fortunate enough to have a doula or a midwife with her. And they're over by a computer while this woman is laboring basically on her own. So it's this medicalization of everything, which really detracts from our humanity, which really detracts from the resilience of the body and the spirit and the mind. And my focus now, I'm not in private practice anymore. So the work that I'm doing now is really more consulting and programs and blogs and all that kind of thing. And my focus now is really in helping to reshape that narrative so that, you know, women, my focus now is really women at midlife, because that's where I am, and raising healthy kids naturally. Because I truly believe that if we continue down the path that we're on with children, humanity itself is at stake. That's kind of my line in the sand at this point. I truly believe that humanity is at stake unless we do something to pull ourselves back from the brink of this medico-industrialized healthcare that really has nothing to do with health at this point.
And the way they do it without looking at the patient, like you were saying, like I was saying, it takes out the interpersonal connection between the doctor and patient. Like my chiropractor, I walk into him, he looks at me, so, oh, your lower right back hurts today, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. How I can tell every time you walk in here, what's wrong with you? At least someone can. So, I mean, I love that he can do that, and he's able to do that little quick tweak on my body and make me feel good to go out for the next month or so and do good things. I think it was the late 90s, early 2000s when they just started throwing like the medications at the kids that were too hyperactive, ADHD, ADD. And now we have a whole generation of kids that were zombieized and don't know how to actually function without them. So when you do wean off them, bad things occur. Things occur to either spectrum, right? They're really great or really bad. And how do you think we can change that narrative of just throwing those pills at those young kids to maybe make them come back and just be focused straight without that stuff?
I think we really need to start with the parents. And this is where I bring in women. And of course, so many of your listeners will be men, but really we need to start with women, because right from pregnancy into labor and into those first early days of parenting, of mothering, women are systematically conditioned to distrust their bodies and their inner wisdom, like right from the outset. You know, probably the most read book on pregnancy, What to Expect When You're Expecting, if you actually open that thing, is just filled with disaster after disaster after disaster that hopefully you'll be lucky enough to avoid. And so if you are terrifying women through pregnancy that they're not capable, they're literally incapable of giving birth on their own, and then they're in labor and they're told that, you know, you're going to have to go in for surgery because we're going to have to save your life and the baby's life, which probably happens in less than 5% of cases. And the rest of them are either convenience or a woman's been pushed to that position because no one's been listening to her body. Right from the outset, the bonding between the mother and the baby and the mother's belief in her capacity to mother that child is altered. And it creates this lifelong dependency on a system that suppresses innate healing intelligence that exists within every human being. And so before we can even get to the kids and what the kids are being given, we need to help women reclaim this inner sovereignty, this inner wisdom that we've always had through literally thousands of years, that we know what's best for our own bodies, that we know what's best for our own children's bodies. That doesn't mean that if you need insulin, you avoid it because you think you know better. I'm not saying that you never engage. What I am saying, though, is that we have to start to engage with our own natural intuition, with our own internal authority, instead of always handing it over and outsourcing it to somebody who claims they know better. And we really have medicalized both childhood development, labor, women's sense of reproduction, midlife transitions. It really ensures that we remain disconnected from our sovereignty throughout our entire lives, and children grow up never learning to trust their bodies. And so if we can start to address that early on, that what a healthy, normal pregnancy looks like, what healthy, normal labor looks like, what raising children can look like when we don't allow ourselves to be sucked into this belief that every sniffle, every fever, every sadness is something that we need to pathologize and medicalize. I think we don't end up on the path where now we're having to try to wean children off of some very dangerous medication. A number of years ago, this was at least 6-7 years ago, the most off-label prescription use, meaning drugs that were not intended for these purposes, but were now being given out for these purposes, were being given to toddlers for mood disorders. Toddlers. How many 3-year-olds are really struggling with depression? And so until we start to reclaim our own authority, we stop this really systematic attack on women's power, on children's bodies, on humanity, it's going to be really hard because it's always going to be reactive. We're always going to be trying to undo something as opposed to teaching something right from the outset, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. 100% makes sense. And I've seen kids as young as 3 or 4 get prescribed stuff. Oh, just give them a little bit of it at a time, because that'll help them get used to it. How about we try something else if we have to get them used to a drug?
Right.
Instead of that, there has to be other steps we can take to make them do things in a different way instead of just making them zombies. Is the non-medical term I can use for that one. I'm not.
It's fair. It's a fair term.
and I think we lose a lot of our youth that way. Just like I said earlier, you wind up with so many kids that have no idea how to feel. They don't know how to feel because their body's numb.
And then they become adults who still don't.
Right. And then they need.
Well, and how do we expect these kids then to grow up and have adult relationships, take responsibility for their behavior, take responsibility for their words, to not be hurling, abuse at everybody around them? How can we expect that when this is what they've grown up with? I describe it as creating the perfect consumers from birth right through death, the perfect consumers for the pharmaceutical industry. And that is dangerous. Even if we just go back to the vast amount of money that is spent, let's take the United States, the vast amount of money that is spent on healthcare. And there is a nation of sicker people now than have ever existed in the history of the United States. Clearly, we're not going about this the right way. And the answer is not to do more of the same. That's sometimes described as the definition of insanity, right?
Yes.
And so we need to do something different. And one of the things that I talk about often, I'll often say, I'm not suggesting we go back to Little House on the Prairie, but I am suggesting that we need to go back to greater simplicity. We need to go back to childhoods that actually look like childhoods, the ones that you and I might have had, where you played outside, where you were climbing trees, where you were in your backyard, where there were games of pickup down the street, not where children are glued to these devices from the moment that they're 6 months old. I mean, I would have women come in to see me for care or for an adjustment or for a consultation, and they'd stick a cell phone in their baby's car seat with their 6-month-old so that they could watch YouTube while they listened to music. And by the time that child was 18 months old, they could scroll through YouTube and find the music that they wanted. But that child's brain is still hardwiring when they're born, and they're not meant to be able to take in the speed of information, the music, the lights, the flashing, all of it that we're exposing them to. So there is so much that we are doing that is completely, the opposite of what natural living, what raising kids naturally looks like. And we're not empowering them. We're not bettering their lives. But once we've introduced these things, they become hyper addictive. all of these things, because the medication, the devices, it's all addictive. And then you try to take it away. You try to withdraw the medicine or take away the phone or the tablet. And now you're into some challenges.
Yes. It becomes worse for you because you made that addiction.
Right.
It's kind of like an addict on the street. Once you cut them off, it kind of goes haywire.
100%.
Same way, once you take away that electronic babysitter,
Right.
which is what it became. Everyone has this babysitter. You see them when they go to dinner or lunch or with their friends. All of a sudden, that kid has an iPad that's better than one I have, sitting in their crib or in their cart, so they can play with it. No one talks to each other.
Right.
Maybe the two adults might that they're trying to catch up, or they're probably just texting each other, because no one knows how to actually talk anymore because of that addiction.
I mean, I don't know what happened to reading to our children. I don't know what happened with pulling out crayons at a restaurant and letting your kids draw.
Yeah.
It's like the most basic things. And yes, we live in a hyper busy world these days, and parents are distracted. And in most cases where where both parents need to be working just to be able to survive the day to day, this gets really challenging. But we have got to find a way back from this edge, because it's not a far jump from this to some technocratic world that we're not going to want to live in or be able to recognize.
And we won't be able to come back from.
No, it gets harder. It gets harder to walk back from the edge than to not go to the edge in the first place. It really does.
Every time a new device comes out, you see all the people running to it. Like iPhone's about to release the number 17, I think. And there's people already putting it on order, and there are other ones not even a year old, because they have that next one to get that next whatever tidbit in there that's going to be in there.
Right.
It's great. I have stock in Apple. It helps me out, but I don't buy them. I buy mine when my phone dies or it stops being able to be scrolled onto call someone, because I can't see because the screen's broken.
Right.
But there's people that have to have that new one so they can be in the know of what's happening and know the latest trend on that device. And that's just as bad as just the scrolling. Just to have that, you have to have the addiction of that thing attached to you at all times.
It's a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
There's a dopamine hit with all of it, right? Because we don't know how to find that naturally any longer. And that's what I'm advocating for, is that we have to find a way back to, again, not Little House on the Prairie, but, a good dose of simplicity, of not needing the latest of everything. One of my midwifery instructors said years ago, and she was talking about birth, but it's rung in my head ever since, because it applies to everything. Just because we have technology doesn't mean we need to use it. But we've been convinced by, we've been convinced by people who don't really have our best interest at heart and who are enriching themselves immensely, that we must have every device, or we are somehow behind, late, out of touch, deficient. And I think we have to, as a human species, really find a way to start to recognize this inner sense of power, instead of always outsourcing that sense of power to somebody else, to a medical system, to politics, to the financial system, to the education system. It's like we have disempowered ourselves entirely and said that all of that is outside of us, instead of recognizing that truth and love and even God are all inside of us. And if we can just hold that alignment and hold a North Star, really figure out who it is that we are, we're not going to get pushed off course by the next latest device, the next emergency measure, the next anything else, because we know what we know. And what we know is that all of that is not meant to help us. It's not meant to improve our lives. It's meant to wrest control out of our hands and hand it to somebody else.
Yes, 100%. And my brother chimed in here in the comments. The new thread is, I'm going to take your tablet away. Mm-hmm. I think it means a far cry from sit in the corner until you figure out what you did wrong.
Right.
It's definitely a way far cry from that. And
right.
I don't think a kid can find a corner right now if you tell them to go to the corner, because they don't know where it is. They just know what the box is, or how to play Minecraft on their tablet is for 30 hours at a time, or watch videos on how someone else plays Minecraft.
That one's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't get that either. Have no, I can't understand it, but they do it, and people make a lot of money off it. So.
Somehow at some point we decided that it was more dangerous to let our kids go outside, and your neighbors will call somebody and tell on you because your kids are outside playing by themselves in your backyard. That is somehow more dangerous than letting your child have unrestricted access to God knows what on these devices, where they are learning things that are so far beyond their capacity to understand, that again are not meant for their health or well-being, that make them question everything about themselves and who they are because they don't yet know who they are. I mean, we want to talk danger. It's not out there. It's in our homes.
And we let it happen. Because we think that's the safe place. I guess the safe place is the box, and they're able to sit on that box all day.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier about listening to all the noise out there, the politics, the rants, everyone out there, the TVs that tell you what you're supposed to feel.
Right.
I tell people if you watch one channel in the morning, don't watch that same channel at night. Watch something different, get a different perspective. If you have to watch the news, get a different perspective so you hear both sides of it at least. And maybe you can find somewhere in the middle where it's real or true, somewhere near the truth, and maybe go talk to somebody, look them in the eyes and say, hello, what are your thoughts on this? And did you see any of this actually happen? And that might help.
I'm not even convinced if it's on the news that there is a different perspective these days.
True.
I'm not convinced of that. I think Substack does a better job at giving us different perspectives, but that leads into this real inability these days to have conversation with somebody who is not in the same silo as you are.
Right.
And that's, the whole capacity to debate is gone. The whole capacity to disagree and still have a conversation is gone. Yeah. My daughter's 20 years old, and when she was in grade 8, they still had debate club. They don't anymore because apparently sticks and stones are not the only things that can break your bones. Words can do it too. Yeah. And so we're no longer allowing ourselves to listen to other points of view. That's a dangerous thing, as we just saw. Yes. And so we really need to find a way to, as a society, to start to shore this up for ourselves again. We need to help these kids, especially at the university age, to really start to see there is some significant, I'm going to say, mental illness at play here right now. There really is. And I'll tell you this, I'm the co-founder of an anti-human trafficking organization in Canada.
Wow.
And I see a lot of what's going on right now. And I got to tell you, it has all the hallmarks of trafficking, all of it. There's more trafficking than just sex trafficking or human trafficking. There's intellectual trafficking. There's moral trafficking. Everything that we're seeing right now, especially in education and higher education, has really got, the same act and means and purpose as trafficking does. The coercion, the refusal to listen to another point of view, the threat of isolation, the threat of exclusion from society. And it's leading to a place that is really leading me in the wake of the last week and 2 weeks. It's really leading me to look at all of this as this massive, psyop of trafficking on humanity for the last 5 years, the likes of which we've never seen before. Akin to slavery, really.
It's been pretty intense, the push to change people's mental perspectives using their devices. And
right.
It's almost, I look at it as, coming from the military side, how terror groups recruit their followers and radicalize them. It's the same thing happening with these young minds.
Right.
You get radicalized and don't even realize it as they're looking at, because everyone that's on that same chat room is thinking the same way. So it's got to be okay. It has to be the right thing to do. And it's too late by the time they realize it and are already committed to doing something heinous at that point.
And that's affirmed by everything around them. It's affirmed by their social groups, most of which are online, not in person. So you lose that heart-to-heart connection, that energetic connection. It's affirmed by their teachers, their professors, by their mental health professionals, all of that, and that's we're really at this place of transhumanism more than anything else. That, for some obvious reasons, is very concerning for the perpetuation of humanity as a whole.
Right. Very concerning, right? It's almost like those old sci-fi movies where you become zombieized by listening to somebody and do something outside of your own body that you're not even knowing you're doing. And that's what young men and women are kind of leaning towards now. And it's going to take a lot to get them back. And I guess teach them a different way, or maybe show them a different way, not teach because they're beyond being taught now. You got to show them the right way to do things, I believe, at this point.
Yeah. I think we're almost looking at what it takes to pull people out of cults.
Yeah. It's horrible right now. We do have a question from the audience. This is from No Reg Keeper. When did you first discover you are your own best medicine?
Yeah, for me, I don't think it was one specific incident. I think it was really this gradual progression of recognizing that we have everything that we need inside of us. And again, because I've been asked this before on different podcasts, does this mean that you don't think that people should take any medication? They shouldn't go to a doctor? No, obviously. If you have diabetes, you need your insulin. What it is more this awareness within our bodies that we are our own gatekeepers. We're also our own best advocates. And we know we have our entire history of our lives of knowing what it is that we feel, when we feel right, when we don't feel right, when we need assistance, when we don't. And it really comes down for me to this understanding that we recognize that we're the ultimate authority on our own well-being. And our children need us to do that for them as well. Mothers in the first 2 years of life are really the greatest expert on their child and when things aren't right, when something is off, better than any external expert. And when we start to trust this inner wisdom and we do the deep work that we need to do to address root causes in our health, not just decide that the way we're going to handle it is to throw medication at it, but to do the deep work, to root out what caused this, then we become our most powerful healer. And it really speaks to these two fundamental truths. The first is that you are your own greatest expert. And that second of all, you're still your most powerful healer. That when you're willing to unravel the trauma, to address toxic exposure, to reconnect with your body's wisdom, you can address the root causes of health and illness and prevent a lot of health issues without them becoming dependent on external interventions. But we have to be willing to have the courage to do the work because, we've all got things in our history that the word trauma gets thrown around all the time right now. And some things truly are, and some things are just challenging situations. And again, it's all been pathologized so that we have trouble differentiating between the two. What does trauma really look like? And what do we need to do to work our way through that? And what is just an unfortunate situation? I've seen young people who have a breakup in grade 9 who end up on anti-anxiety medication for the next 10 years because their boyfriend left them. That's somebody who needs to find a way to learn some resilience. And we have to start to understand that everything is interconnected. Our physical health connects with our nutritional health, which connects with our environmental well-being, which connects with our mental and emotional well-being. And all of it connects to each other. And we hold that story. We know what that story is because we've lived it. As we start to unpack that, which takes work and courage to do, we can truly start to unravel so much. I've seen women who have been horrifically abused in trafficking situations or domestic abuse situations or parental abuse situations who are the most beautiful, loving, God-fearing people because they've done the work to release the trauma that they've gone through. And we all have that capacity. It's not that some of us are more special than others. We just have to be willing to do that work. And we need somebody maybe to help guide us, not somebody to say, well, take these 16 medications for the rest of your life, and then you'll be able to live this subsistence level existence. That's not living. Survival is not living. That's not thriving. And my assertion is that we are all capable of that, no matter what we've been through. We just need to find the key and the patience and sometimes the people to help us do that.
Definitely. Like you said, the 16 medications, the only thing you're doing at that time is looking at a timer for when the next pills come.
Yeah.
When you're supposed to take the next one, or make sure you're taking the right one of that bunch. And by that time, you're so confused, and some days you're going to miss them and feel whacked out because you didn't have that rush or whatever that thing is. And I think we did, like, the big industry of big pharma, which we witnessed through from 2020 on. The whole world got to witness what big pharma was all about at 2020. Before that, you could see signs and symptoms of it, but 2020, it reared its ugly head when you had to do this or you couldn't do that. And it kind of made things a little more wide open at what big pharma was all about and who supported them and who they supported. So it opened up a lot of people's eyes to that, and a lot of people started going towards the holistic approach to life and trying to figure out ways around not getting shots, not getting the drugs that everyone's trying to hand you out there. Maybe just taking a vitamin to offset something that you're going on in your life, but you research it yourself and find out that medicine, or talk to a holistic care person, say, hey, would magnesium help me for this? Or maybe this would help me too, instead of taking all these pills. And that's where you get the right answers.
And I think it starts with this belief system that we are perfect, that we are wonderfully made, not deficiently made, not broken at birth. The fact that that's even something that is believed on as wide a scale as it is right now really tells you just how powerful that propaganda has been. I mean, that's mind-boggling to me that it's been that powerful to believe that somehow we are born broken and deficient.
Right.
And it just continues through our lives. That again speaks to a lack of this internal North Star, this lack of internal authority, and a lack of belief in something far greater than us.
Exactly. And me and my wife laugh whenever we're watching TV, and like every other commercial is about some new drug that's out there.
Yeah.
And then after they tell you about what it's for, then the last 30 seconds is usually telling you how it's going to kill you.
Yep.
Don't take it if you're allergic to it. How do you know if you're allergic to it? You're going to die. So if I take this, there's a chance I'm going to die if I take this medication. Thanks.
Right.
I really want to take it now. But they have to put those disclaimers in there because now so many people are pushing it. There's going to be a lawsuit down the line that comes in line with this. But we told you on the commercial that you're safe because we told you not to take it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And it's that lack of ability to question, the lack of critical thought, the lack of nuance that keeps people from watching that last 30 seconds as the list just scrolls past ad nauseum, and it's ignored.
Right.
It's like, I don't want to hear it, la, 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 fingers in your ear. You don't want to hear any of the bad stuff. You just want the promise that it offers you. And that's, again, I come back to where is our own capacity to stand on our own 2 feet and teach our children to do that, so that we are not swayed or coerced in the way that so many people were in 21, 22, to their detriment. Really. I mean, the number of us who were standing on rooftops screaming, please don't. And here's all the reasons why. And the inability, because the constant fear programming is so intense. It's so intense. And it's not, when you don't know who you are, then you're not capable of recognizing what's going on around you. And I really think that where we need to go back to and start from is with women in pregnancy, to help them start to feel that sense of joy and curiosity and excitement and true belief in themselves to raise this child beautifully without needing all of this outside in interference that is making their children so sick. And then, if God forbid your child really does need something, you have a child who is unwell, they're not so inundated with medication that whatever you really need to give them doesn't even work. Right? Like, let's keep our children's bodies clean so that when they do need, Advil, or they do need an antibiotic, it's actually going to be effective. Not that they've been so inundated with these drugs from the moment that they're born that it doesn't work. So we go to harder and harsher medications, one after the other, with more and more and more side effects.
Right, exactly. And you've seen it from living in Canada to now where you are now. What's the difference between the two, living in Panama and living in Canada, as far as medical approaches?
It's interesting, socialized medicine, even though I think a lot of Americans think that somehow that would be better than the amount of money you guys pay. Socialized medicine means you get the worst of care with the longest wait times, but it's theoretically free while it's all coming out of your taxes. And the understanding that the medical system works for you, especially since you're paying for it with your taxes, is somehow completely disregarded. And people are told, your Google search can't begin to compete with my medical degree. The number of women that I had in my practice who would be told when they were going through perimenopause and into menopause and their bodies were changing, would literally be told, you don't need your uterus anymore. Why don't we just take that out? What? Okay, dear God, what? And
Wow.
that is a common statement. And I don't think that's just Canada. I'm quite certain that is, worldwide.
Yeah.
The difference between Canada and Panama is interesting. Here, the medical system is mostly paid for. It is a fraction of the cost of the United States, which is really interesting. You've generally got your doctor's WhatsApp number and you can message them and they will reply, which is mind-boggling. Care here is quite good. A lot of doctors are first trained here and then they'll go to North America or to Europe to further their education and come back. But unfortunately, I would say that the Panamanian people have bought the doctor knows best message hook, line, and sinker and don't question very much at all. There's probably more resistance in Canada, and the Canadian resistance does not begin to hold a candle to American resistance.
Wow.
So in some ways, we chose Panama because, interestingly, Central America feels more free these days than Canada does. But in some ways, like the healthcare system, it wasn't an upgrade.
It's an interesting view there. That's amazing, and things we wouldn't know unless we visit, like having you on here from there to tell us that. So thank you for sharing that. And we got another question from the audience. This is from @Entry Bernice. Can you share a success story where natural healing completely transformed someone's life? Thank you, Entry Bernice.
Yeah, I can. And natural healing, remember, might include plant medicine these days, might include things that, are not just supplements and herbs. But I can think of a young woman who was trafficked for years and exposed to some of the most horrific abuse and would completely dissociate psychologically and mentally, was physically looked like she was beaten all the time, even when she was out of that life, and managed to find a program that within 6 months of holistic care completely turned her life around. The dissociation stopped, the physical symptoms stopped. She was eventually able to get married, to have children, things that when I knew her in a million years that I would never have imagined her being able to do, ever. And that took some, psychedelic and psychotropic medication to help her through that. It was a really interesting program, but her entire life changed. And this beautiful, brilliant woman is now this thriving adult with children of her own, and she's healthy. And I've seen that more than once. I've seen people who are on, every medication known, under the sun. And slowly with time, you have to start to tease out, like I said, what are the root causes of what's going on here? Not just here's a diagnosis, let's slap it on. Because that's normally what happens. Somebody would come in and they would actually say, fix me, doc, just fix me. And I'd have to say, I don't fix anything. I help your body to heal. And that takes teasing apart. Okay, what are the symptoms? What's the diagnosis given to the symptom? What's the medication that you're currently on? What was your life like before? What's the history? And you have to start to tease it apart. And not a big part of it is not believing that we're cut off at the neck. that what we're doing, that the way that we feel emotionally and mentally is completely separate from the physical, and vice versa. We really are these beautiful integrated wholes and the sum total of all of our experience in life. And so when I say that it takes work and it takes courage, it's not this immediate, like, quick fix. And we really are a society now that wants that immediate gratification in everything. And so if a pharmaceutical drug can cut off your awareness of your symptoms, your pain or your discomfort or your spiraling thoughts or anything else, and you can just be numb, then that's considered healing. And it's not. It's evasion. It's a refusal to actually go deep and do the work. And sometimes, you know, I'm talking on a podcast right now where so many of you are veterans, and you've had experiences that I have never had, will never have. You've seen things that I will never see. And going in to do that deep work shouldn't mean reliving the trauma, but it does mean having to find our way back to who we were before the trauma, to who we were meant to be in this world, to what our higher purpose is, to who it is that we're meant to influence. And that takes some work and, again, some courage to do. But I've seen it happen over and over again. It's not a quick fix.
It's not definitely not a quick. It's usually I like to compare it to a marathon. It's not a 100-meter sprint. It's a marathon. You gotta get in. You got to be in it for a long game,
Right.
and stick with it. Or if you don't see those instant results like you're used to, just stick with it for the next 15 days or so until that habit you've changed or that thing you're trying has a chance to actually work and start making you feel better.
And it's this step-by-step approach. And it has to start with this belief that you're worth it. You're worth it not because of your job or the money that you have or your position in the world or anything else. You're worth it because you're here. You're on this planet. You were created and you're here. And that in itself makes you intrinsically, beautifully valuable. And we have to find our way back to believing that. Even if we lose it occasionally, we come back to it and we come back to it and we come back to it. So that as we do that, sometimes painstaking work and sometimes it's not. And we start to look at our diets and our nutrition and the products that we're using and what we're putting into our homes and what we're putting into our bodies. And we start to clean it all up. And we start to live these lives of purpose. Even if it's slow, even if it takes years, it's not about eventually getting to this end goal. It's about this continual desire to live in a way that's true to who we are.
Yes, definitely. And I can see it happening in some of my buddies now, in myself. January, I quit drinking after 40 years of always drinking, quit cold turkey, and just naturally let it go. And don't haven't looked back yet, which is good. And I feel 100% better since I can remember today, tomorrow. So it'll be great. That's one awesome thing. I can remember everything.
Good for you.
And everything is so much clearer now to do it that way, and just wait for the small changes as this year is progressing since I made that change in my life. And I think it's one of the best things I've ever done.
And it's interesting because that's one change, and
Right.
it's a brilliant change. You cut out the toxins and the mind control of it and the sugars in it and all of those things. And now you have the bandwidth internally to take the next step, whatever that might be.
Right.
Maybe it's looking at the foods you're eating. Maybe if you're eating processed foods, you start to decide, you and your wife decide that you're going to make your meals, that you're going to really be careful about what you're putting in nutritionally. Maybe it's you look at the cleaning products in your home and you decide you don't need the ones that have all of the chemical ingredients. You can switch to vinegar and lemon oil. Like there are so many different ways that we can start to tease out what are we doing because it's more convenient and we were sold that this is the way to do it. And how can I find a way back toward that, Ma and Pa Ingalls moment where it's just a little more simplistic, without necessarily needing to live out on the prairie. It's a little more simplistic. And everything that we choose is chosen with intention. And every intention is chosen to move us forward one more step. And so it becomes this journey of just one more step and one more step.
I think the last question I'm going to give you from the audience, I think it hits what we just talked about, but you can expand upon it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
This is from the oath we have. For those new to holistic health, what's the first small step they can take today?
So honestly, I think it's not something we need to add in. I think it's something we need to remember, because so often, when you want to start getting healthy, if you listen to me right now, you might be thinking like, okay, good Lord, this woman is telling me that I need to eat differently, give up sugar, give up drinking, get rid of all the toxic products. And right there, that's enough for most people to go, thanks, but no thanks. I think what we can start with, and it's free and it's easy, is sitting quietly for 1 minute a day and following our breath. Not trying to meditate, because for most of us raised in the West, that's a concept that just doesn't, we can't stop our minds from spinning. And so then we're like, this doesn't work and I can't do it. But literally just sitting, closing your eyes and breathing, and either listening to your breath or almost envisioning it moving through your body. You can have one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly and just feel them both rise. Do they rise at the same time? Do they rise to the same extent? Do you have more breath in your lungs than in your belly? Can you start to move your breath a little bit? And it's just getting yourself out of that spinning monkey mind that we all have, and starting to remember that we have a body, especially if it's a body that feels uncomfortable sometimes, or that we feel pain in, or that we feel inflammation in, or that we have memories of something in. And it's just a way of like calming it down and bringing it back to first principles, which is really just, you have breath, and can you follow that breath? And it's the simplest start. And the next step from there really depends on what your goals are and what your need is. I mean, are you struggling with weight? Are you struggling with sugars? Are you struggling with blood pressure? Are you struggling with, where's the struggle? And then it's sort of teasing from there. But for me, it starts with breath, and then it goes into remembering who we are. So it's this deconditioning of everything outside of us takes precedence and everyone outside of us is the expert, to really starting to remember that we are our own best expert. We are our own best medicine, and starting to trust ourselves and love ourselves and recognize ourselves as the gift that we are, just because we're here, not for any other reason.
Outstanding. That's a great way to answer that and finish up the audience questions. Now, as we start to close out here, you're on the hot seat now for us. We give you 2 questions. The first one's pretty simple. What's the best way for anyone from the Misfit Nation to get in contact with you if they want to just chat with you like we are, or maybe get some help from you?
The best way right now is through my website. I don't have a huge social media presence. I really walked away from that in 2020 when I realized how toxic it was, and I'm just slowly working my way back to it. But the best way is my website, which is elementalhealingarts.life. You can subscribe to emails there. You can download a couple of free guides that are there. There's a contact button there as well, so you can reach out that way. And I read everything that's sent to me and I'll respond. So that's the answer to the first question.
Outstanding. And that's going across the bottom of the screen for those of you who are watching the podcast. It'll be in the show notes for those who get the audio version later on. The second question is a little more complex. What's 3 things the Misfit Nation can start doing tomorrow to make them better people?
I like that. Well, I think the very first thing is to really start to acknowledge that we are, sorry, my cat is yelling at me in the background, that we are our own best advocate, that we are our own best medicine, that healing happens from within when we create the right conditions with simple practices like standing outside and feeling the sun on your face, or breathing, or connecting with nature, to really activate our body's innate healing intelligence way more effectively than trying to suppress symptoms with all of the meds that are being thrown at us. Again, don't stop taking the ones you're taking, please, because it can take time to wean off of things. But let's start to remember that we have a body, and that we are, wonderfully and beautifully made, and that we can get back to health. So that's the first one. The second one is really to start to build our inner compass, as opposed to really relying on and complying with external authority all the time. I think it comes down to really questioning everything. Literally everything, especially when it comes to institutions that profit from our compliance, whether that's educational systems or medical systems. I think we always need to ask who benefits from our dependence, so that we can start to come back to an understanding that our inner authority is really the place, that the ground that we need to stand on to start with. And then a third one, which is similar, is to really claim radical responsibility for our health and in all aspects of our lives. That doesn't mean not ever going to see a medical doctor, not seeing a mental health professional, not anything like that. But we all have the power to research and to understand and to make informed decisions as adults. And we need to start using that critical thinking and nuance ability that we all have in order to learn about our bodies, in order to make informed decisions about our lives. And you can do that by researching alternatives or keeping a journal of your symptoms, not to hyper focus on them, but to start to understand, when I feel this way, I've just done this or eaten this, and start to see the connections of why we might be feeling the way that we're feeling. And seeking multiple perspectives from people who are willing to always put us in the driver's seat of our lives and of our health, not hold this top-down authoritarian approach to, you have to listen to me because of my degree, my experience, my knowledge, my whatever, but where you are at the center of a spoke of care, where everybody coming off of it is responding to you and your needs, and you claim responsibility for your own health and well-being and pull in the people and the protocols and the programs or whatever else that will best assist you to heal.
Outstanding. Those are three great things. You hit the hot seat very well. No problems with the hot seat. Awesome. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight from Panama. I had to keep saying Panama so people know that we are in Panama now. So outstanding. Thank you for bringing us there. And thank you for what you're doing on the holistic approach to things, natural healing, and helping people find that other way and finding that inner compass for themselves. It's been awesome chatting with you for the last hour.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for everything that you're doing for everybody that you're doing it for.
Thank you. MisFit Nation, remember, as we always tell you, a day tomorrow is better than a day without you. A day tomorrow with you is better than a day without you. So don't make that permanent solution to the temporary problem. We're here for you. If you don't want to call 988, email us at info@themisfitnation.com. Jake at themisfitnation.com or Steven at themisfitnation.com. We will get in contact with you. We'll stay on the phone with you until you get the help you need. Do not make that decision. And we will see you Tuesday as the crew welcomes Elaine Brewer. Till next time, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the MisFit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great MisFit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
MisFit Nation. MisFit Nation.